Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Another draft-eligible prospect joins me on today's show. His name is Charlie Wright. He currently plays in the Western Hockey League, and we talked about his career, his preparedness for the NHL Draft, his style of play, and much more. It was a great discussion, so buckle up. There's a lot to discuss.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, and also Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, Trey Matthews. I am interviewing another draft-eligible prospect. So the first draft-eligible prospect I interviewed was Chase Coward. He is a goalie for the WHL, and I am interviewing another WHL prospect, and his name is Charlie Wright. Now, Charlie is very interesting. I pulled up an article about him from the Hockey Writers, and according to some sources, they say that he is a heavily slept-on defenseman for the WHL. So according to the article, Charlie Wright is rarely talked about, and that is a good thing. The blue liner is a traditional stay-at-home defenseman who doesn't make many mistakes and can get the puck out of his own zone with ease. This season, he registered 1 goal and 19 assists in 58 games. But what may be more impressive is that he only had 6 penalty minutes all season. He plays low-event, effective hockey, which is something every team needs. Although Wright is not on the offensive force, he does jump in the rush from time to time. The word that best describes his play is safe, which is not bad by any stretch. One of the most underrated player profiles is an anchor defenseman that doesn't make mistakes and can cover while the partner jumps up in the play. While he may not be the most exciting prospect selected, he can make a difference and will be a strong addition to whichever prospect pool he is added to. So I'm actually going to say this later in the interview, but the New Jersey Devils, we are definitely no strangers to getting defensemen. There's a reason why most of the numbers retired at the potential center are defensemen plus Marty Brodeur. So in a way, I can kind of understand the style that Charlie plays. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with playing it safe. And during the course of this interview, I talked about his style of play of just being the stay-at-home defenseman, especially since the NHL seems to be developing more into a two-way defenseman kind of role, and how does he not get lost in that sort of change in the NHL. But overall, like I said, according to the Hockey Writers, they state that he is one of the more underrated players in the WHL. So the Devils, we are no strangers to drafting, diamonds in the rough. So you got Jesper Bratt, you got Yegor Sharangovich, and also Dawson Mercer, I would say was kind of a diamond in the rough, considering the fact that we drafted him mid-first round, and he was one of 3 rookies this season to suit up in all 82 games. So Charlie Wright would definitely be an interesting person to take a look at. So during the course of this interview, we talk about his hockey background. We talk about the preparation of just, getting himself ready for the draft. And also he talked more about his style of play and how he hopes to integrate it into the NHL, and also his strengths and weaknesses. So it was a great discussion. So without further ado, let's bring in Charlie and talk about the NHL Draft. Let's take it away. Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? I've said this before, the NHL Draft is fast approaching, and there's a whole lot of players hoping to hear their names be called come July 7th, so that way they could punch their ticket to the NHL. It's the first step to what could be an amazing career. Today, I am accompanied by a draft-eligible prospect. He is currently a defenseman for the Saskatoon Blades of the WHL and is currently ranked 142nd in the NHL.com final prospect ranking. It's Alberta native Charlie Wright. Charlie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
So usually I start off by asking what everyone's hockey background is, but I want to start off with this. Obviously, you're eligible to be selected in this year's NHL Draft. How have the last few days, few weeks, few months, whatever the case might be, how's it been feeling on your end?
Right. So the season ended, and obviously that's kind of your last chance to kind of show the kind of player you are and what the team's going to be getting. But since the season's been over, you have some teams reach out and have some interviews or whatever, and you're just trying to kind of show some character leading up to draft day because they don't really get to see that kind of stuff on the ice.
So we'll talk about the process of possibly being drafted. We'll talk about things of that nature momentarily. But first, I want to get your hockey background. Where did hockey begin for you?
My dad put me in hockey when I was about 4 years old. I'm from Olds, Alberta, so I grew up playing here in Olds up until Bantam when I went to Red Deer to play AAA there. And I played 2 years there. And from there, I went to play my, U15 year, U16 year in Edmonton with Northern Alberta Extreme there, NAX, which was a great year there. And then since then, I've been playing with the Saskatoon Blades.
So what made you realize that you had something special? Because obviously a lot of people are able to get drafted, but you're ranked by NHL.com. You have the possibility of going to a home in the NHL. What made you realize that maybe I'm not like the rest of my peers or competitors?
I think I was really just gifted. Just even right from a kid, I was always born just athletic, and I was always really good at all kinds of sports, but hockey was always my favorite. And just growing up, I kind of felt like maybe I had something going and it was a dream of mine. So I just kept pushing forward, and it brought me to here today.
So growing up, who did you try to model your game after? Did you have an NHL idol?
Giordano was definitely a guy I looked up to a lot growing up. Another guy that I really like watching now is Josh Morrissey. He's a great skating defenseman, really smart, can break pucks out with ease, and I think a guy that I think I could play similarly to at the next level.
Now, I know these guys were before your time. However, this is a Devils podcast, so I just got to ask this question. Scott Stevens, Ken Danico, like any of those guys, like, also spark your interest of how you play the game on the defensive side of things? Because I believe the New Jersey Devils, they are the epitome as to like how the modern NHL is, which is, they played physical and the NHL kind of had to intervene and just say like, hey, you got to like limit what you do from a physical standpoint. But, obviously what Scott Stevens was able to do for a Devils organization, what Ken Danico was able to do as well. Do any of those guys from Jersey also spark some interest in terms of how you modeled your game to possibly play at the NHL level?
Not a whole ton. I think growing up, like I said, it was Giordano. I was always a Flames fan, so that's kind of who I cheered for. And that's who I'm close to. But definitely there's some guys on New Jersey, like Ty Smith just came out of the WHL and he was a fantastic player. And he's been doing great so far in his career.
Don't worry, there's still more in store with Charlie, but before we continue with today's discussion, I want to bring you guys the first and only live read this morning, and it comes from our friends at betonline.net. So betonline.net is your number one source for all your sport betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including this year's NHL playoffs. Congratulations to the Stanley Cup champion, the Colorado Avalanche. MLB season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Please remember to gamble responsibly and visit our friends at Locked On Bets for all your betting needs there as well. Okay, so let's get back to our discussion with Charlie as we talk more about the NHL draft and his hockey career. Take it away once again. Now that you're older, which current or past NHL player best exemplifies your style of play? What I mean by that is like having played sports myself, obviously I had a lot of like idols or role models that, I was just mesmerized by. But as I grow older, I was like, okay, so here's the player that best exemplifies who I am as a player in terms of my strengths, my weaknesses. So having played baseball, I was never a power hitter, but someone I tried to, say that my game was similar to was Derek Jeter, which was a contact hitter, but I'm not going to take you deep and I'm going to try to like work the count. Or someone like Pete Rose got on base a lot. So is there like a current or a past NHL player that, best exemplifies how you play the game currently now that you're older and more mature?
Yeah, I'd like to say Josh Morrissey again. He's a great skating defenseman, and I think that's the biggest part of my game is my skating and my hockey sense. And Josh Morrissey has the whole package. You can play in all areas of the game. Two-way defenseman, great skater, breaks pucks out, great for his team, and his team relies on him a lot.
So how did this season go for you in terms of playing for the Blades? Like, what were some of the high moments? What were some of the low moments? And how did it get you to where you're at currently?
Yeah, it's been a great playing for the Blades ever since I've been drafted there. It was I was super pumped and stoked to be there, and they've treated me great since. And a lot of highs, a few lows. I mean, this year we got knocked out in the first round, which was really disappointing, and a series I thought we would win. But the Blades organization has been fantastic.
So one thing that I did more research about your style of play and who you are as a player. And one of the things that people are saying is that you're a stay-at-home defenseman. Now, obviously, the NHL has changed a little bit. Like, it's become more of a two-way defenseman. Like we saw, like Owen Power be selected first overall, considered a two-way type of player. Then you look at someone like Luke Hughes, who was drafted by the Devils organization. Obviously, he can light it up on the offensive side of things, but he's a defenseman. But one of his issues was, defense, the irony of it. So you being a stay-at-home defenseman and obviously the NHL progressing in a whole new direction, how do you try to, maintain yourself as like a player? Like, you don't try to change like your game overall, but, just try to, not like fizzle out, if that makes sense. So basically, how do you just keep yourself in the running of how like the NHL is changing currently?
Yeah, absolutely. The roots of my game is definitely the defensive side, like you said, kind of a stay-at-home guy. But I'd like to consider myself a bit of a two-way defenseman too. I think I can add some offense and support the rush. I think I just play a safer game than maybe some other defensemen, and don't take as many risks getting caught in deep and giving up odd man rushes maybe the other way.
It's funny you said that because the article that I read from the Hockey Writer said that you also play the game safe, which there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, it's better to be safe than sorry. And obviously you're trying to put your name into the NHL draft. So you don't really want to make too many boneheaded mistakes, but, nothing wrong with that. So in that article, they listed you as one of the most top 10 underrated WHL players in the entire draft. What's it like just being listed as sort of an underdog? Because the New Jersey Devils were no exception to underdogs. We were able to draft Jesper Bratt late in the draft, and now he's one of our best players. Yegor Sharangovich, 5th round selection, and no one really expected much out of him, but he was able to shine. Devils are no strangers to like getting diamonds in the rough. So what's it like just, being listed as an underdog, but knowing what you could potentially bring to any organization that picks you up?
Yeah, I think maybe my numbers aren't the flashiest numbers. I don't score a ton of goals, but I think it's the little things in the game that I can bring to any team, just doing those things right and breaking pucks out and helping out my team any way I can defensively. And then maybe being able to add some of that offense and grow that part of my game as well.
So obviously offense is something you said you want to work on. Are there a few other aspects to your game that you want to try to add as you progress as a player?
Definitely work on my physicality. I haven't exactly filled out yet. So I think that's an area that will come a bit naturally as well. And that's going to help out my game a ton, killing the corners and not letting pucks get out.
So you're ranked on NHL.com as one of the top North American skaters, currently ranked 142 amongst all North American skaters. So is there a team that you hope to get picked up by? Like, is there like I know you talked about you being a Calgary Flames fan. Are you hoping that maybe the Flames will select you, or is there another team that you wouldn't mind going to start off your career at?
To be honest, not at all, right? it's the usual answer. It's a dream come true for any kid growing up in Canada. And no matter what team takes me, I'm going to be pumped and definitely going to celebrate that with family and friends that day.
So someone told me that the Devils questioned about potentially drafting you in this year's draft. And obviously the New Jersey Devils, I told you early on in the episode that we're big on our defensemen. Like, there's a reason why most of the numbers that are retired at the Prudential Center are defensemen. And I put Marty Brodeur in that list as well, even though he was a goalie, because, goalies are a vital part to like how you slow down an attacking offense. But if you were to hypothetically, and I know this is a few steps ahead, if you were to hypothetically be selected by the New Jersey Devils, you talked about Ty Smith. Obviously, he was in the running for the Calder Memorial Trophy. I believe he finished in the top 10 last year. What do you hope to bring to the organization if you were to be selected by the New Jersey Devils?
I'd like to think, again, I'd bring that two-way game, but mostly shutting down the other team's top lines and bringing a defensive side to the game that I can play against those top lines and hopefully add on some of that offense as well. But I think also I would bring a lot of leadership and a good energy into the dressing room and be able to help guys as I get older and help those younger guys that maybe are coming in grow into their game as well.
So, like I said, Devils big on defense. I would love to have you on the team, because one thing I say the Devils need to improve on if they want to like take their organization to the next level is that they do need some more defensive depth. Obviously, we started with Luke Hughes, and hopefully, maybe if an opportunity does present itself, maybe we can select you. But that brings me to my next question. So, how have you been preparing yourself for the NHL draft? We talked about how you were feeling mentally, but in terms of just like staying in shape, going gym runs, rink runs, whatever the case might be, how have you been preparing yourself physically to possibly get to the NHL level?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to eat a ton and put on some weight in this off season, as well as gain that strength back that you don't really get to work on during the season. You lose a lot of it throughout the 68 games. So just trying to get that gain or that strength back and gain that weight is a big part of my off season.
How would you describe your game? We talked about you being a stay-at-home defenseman, but if you could go into more detail as to like what you could bring to an organization, how would you describe your game as a whole? What are your strengths? What are some things that people might overlook? And what are some things that you just want to establish while you're on this show?
I think my strengths are my skating and hockey sense for sure. It allows me to move around the ice with ease and have good gap and shut down the other team's top lines. And then once I get that puck, I can make breakout passes with ease and help out my team on the breakout. And then just doing the little things right as well, killing the corners and being as physical as you can be, having a good stick on puck, just those little things like that.
Now, I've always asked this question because I'm a bit of a gamer myself, but when you get to the NHL level, are you looking forward to seeing yourself in a video game like with Shell and EA Sports? Would you just like play as yourself as the avatar or things of that nature? Like, is that something you're looking forward to, just maybe seeing yourself in video game form?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. I think the WHL actually has a mode in NHL, so I think I might already be in there, but maybe get a few upgrades as well if I do end up playing in the NHL.
What kind of upgrades do you want to see, or what overall rating would you give yourself, honestly?
That's probably a few years down the line, but right now I would say 60 to 70 overall, and once I get to the NHL, hopefully that gets up to an 80 to 90.
So when the draft day comes, what's the first thing you're going to do if you hear your name selected? Obviously, I know, there's going to be hugs, there's going to be cheers, there's going to be a lot of things, but let's just say 24 hours have advanced. What's the first thing you're going to do after you've been selected into the NHL?
I think I just got to thank my parents a ton. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today without them, and probably spend the day with my family, just take them out, maybe even buy them dinner or something, who knows. But I know the day of the draft, I'll be skating, hopefully to just take my mind off of it a little bit, as it can be a bit stressful. But I think probably the next day I'll for sure be spending it with my family.
So from playing with the Blades organization and WHL, now possibly having the chance to be selected into the NHL, probably has to be a whirlwind of emotions. And I know the big day is going to be here before we know it. And obviously you do have a chance to be selected. And I just want to say, I wish you the best. And is there anything that you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's been awesome. And I'm glad I got to come on here and kind of show a little bit of myself and my character.
All right. So everyone keep an ear out for Charlie Wright out of the WHL to possibly be selected to any NHL franchise of your choosing. Hopefully it's the New Jersey Devils, because we're known for our defensemen. And obviously, Ty Smith was in a similar situation just a couple years ago and was in the running for the Calder Memorial Trophy. So Charlie, best of luck to you, buddy. And hopefully we do see you on an NHL roster sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much.